Question number 121. Who are the Acadians? A. Aboriginal people of the Arctic. B. French-speaking Catholics living in Ontario. C. The descendants of French colonists, who began settling in what are now the Maritime Provinces in 1604. D. English-speaking refugees who settled in Louisiana. Question number 122. Who are the founding peoples of Canada? A. Métis, French and British. B. Aboriginal, Métis and British. C. Inuit, Aboriginal and British. D. Aboriginal, French and British. Question number 123. Who are the Métis? A. The distinct Aboriginal people of Atlantic Canada. B. A people of mixed Inuit or First Nations ancestry, most of whom live on the prairies. C. First Nations people speaking the Michif dialect. D. A distinct people of mixed Aboriginal and European ancestry. Question number 124. Who are the Quebecers? A. European settlers in the 1600s. B. Descendants of the French colonists. C. Descendants of the Anglophones. D. People of Quebec. Question number 125. Who do Canadians vote for in a federal election? A. The best speaker running in the election. B. A candidate they want to represent them in Parliament. C. Someone to become the Premier. D. All of the candidates in their electoral district. Question number 126. Who do members of Parliament represent? A. All of the Canadians living in the North. B. Only Canadians living in Central Canada. C. Everyone who lives in his or her electoral district. D. Canadians living in the province in which he or she was elected. Question number 127. Who had played an important part in building the Canadian Pacific Railway, CPR? A. American railroad engineers. B. Acadian railroad workers. C. Chinese railroad workers. D. African American slaves. 128. Who has the right to run as a candidate in federal elections? A. Anyone. B. A Canadian citizen who is 16 years old. C. Any man who is at least 18 years old. D. Any Canadian citizen who is at least 18 years old. Question number 129. Who has the right to vote in federal elections? A. A Canadian citizen, 18 years or older, and on voters' list. B. A Canadian citizen, 18 years or older and must work for the federal government. C. A landed immigrant, 18 years old and a member of the Canadian Forces. D. A Canadian citizen, over 25 years and a member of the Canadian Forces. 130. Who have major responsibilities on First Nations reserves? A. Band chiefs and councillors. B. Municipal governments. C. Provincial and territorial governments. D. Federal government. 131. Who is Canada's head of state? A. Governor-General of Canada. B. Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. C. Prime Minister. D. Lieutenant Governor. 132. Who is considered the father of Manitoba? A. John A. Macdonald. B. Sam Steele. C. Alfred Boyd. D. Louis Riel. 133. Who is General Sir Arthur Currie? A. A military leader of the Métis in the 19th century. B. A great frontier hero. C. An explorer of Western Canada. D. Canada's greatest soldier in the First World War. 134. Who is the head of government? A. The President. B. The Queen. C. The Governor-General. D. The Prime Minister. Question number 135. Who is the leader of the federal official opposition party? A. Thomas Mulcair. B. Andrew Scheer. C. Candice Bergen. D. Elizabeth May. Question number 136. Who is the Queen's representative in Canada? A. Prime Minister of Canada. B. Premier. C. Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. D. Governor-General of Canada. Question number 137. Who led an armed uprising and seized Fort Garry? A. John A. Macdonald. B. Louis Riel. C. Sam Steele. D. Georges-Étienne Cartier. Question number 138. Who led Quebec into Confederation? A. Sir Louis Hippolyte La Fontaine. B. Sir Georges-Étienne Cartier. C. Sir Wilfrid Laurier. D. Sir John A. Macdonald. Question number 139. Who was Sir Louis Hippolyte La Fontaine? A. A champion of democracy and Aboriginal rights. B. A champion of democracy and French language rights, and the first leader of a responsible government in the Canadas. C. The first head of state. D. The first French-speaking prime minister. Question number 140. Who was Sir Sam Steele? A. A great frontier hero, mounted policeman and soldier of the Queen. B. A military leader of the Métis in the 19th century. C. The first Prime Minister of Canada. D. The father of Manitoba. Question number 141. Who was the first leader of a responsible government in the Canadas in 1849? A. Sir John A. Macdonald. B. Robert Baldwin. C. Louis Riel. D. Sir Louis Hippolyte La Fontaine. Question number 142. Who was the first Prime Minister of Canada? A. Louis Riel. B. Sir John A. Macdonald. C. Lester B. Pearson. D. Abraham Lincoln. 143. Who were the United Empire Loyalists? A. Settlers who came to Canada from the United States during the American Revolution. B. Aboriginal peoples. C. Métis. D. Inuit. Question number 144. Who were the voyagers? A. Montreal-based traders who travelled by canoe. B. Immigrants to Canada in the 18th century. C. Explorers searching for the Northwest Passage. D. Geographers who first charted the coastline of British Columbia. Question number 145. Why is the Battle of Vimy Ridge important? A. It was a key position of the German line in northern Spain. B. Canadian Corps secured its reputation for valor and bravery. C. It was the hinge of the German line, as it protected the newly constructed Hindenburg Line. D. Once Canadians fought at Vimy, they knew they would be heading home. Question number 146. Why is trade with other countries important to Canada? A. It enhances our standard of living. B. It makes it easier for us to travel to foreign countries. C. It enhances our economy and raises our standard of living. D. It brings in cheaper goods. Question number 147. What is the name of the Lieutenant Governor of Quebec? A. Honorable Pierre Duchesne. B. Honorable Jean-Louis Roux. C. Honorable Marshal Asselin. D. Honorable J. Michel Doyen. Question number 148. What is the capital city of Alberta? A. Medicine Hat. B. Red Deer. C. Calgary. D. Edmonton. Question number 149. What is the name of the leader of the opposition in Alberta? A. Rachel Notley. B. Brian Jean. C. Heather Forsyth. D. Jim Prentice. Question number 150. What is the name of the Lieutenant Governor of Alberta? A. Donald S. Ethel. B. Selma Laconnie. C. Adrienne Clarkson. D. Lois Mitchell. Question number 151. What is the name of the Premier of Alberta? A. Premier Rachel Notley. B. Premier Jason Kenney. C. Premier Jim Prentice. D. Premier Stephen Harper. Question number 152. Which political party is in power in Alberta? A. New Democratic Party. B. Liberal Party. C. Green Party. D. United Conservative Party. Question number 153. Which three natural resources are important to Alberta's economy today? A. Oil, agriculture, and forestry. B. Oil, tourism, and fishing. C. Oil, coal, and hydroelectricity. D. Oil, coal, and forestry. Question number 154. Name the federal electoral districts in Richmond, British Columbia. A. Richmond has two federal electoral districts, Richmond North and Richmond South. B. Richmond has two federal electoral districts, Richmond East and Richmond West. C. Richmond has two federal electoral districts, Richmond and Richmond South. D. Richmond has two federal electoral districts, Richmond Centre and Steveston Richmond East. Question number 155. Name the members of Parliament for Richmond, British Columbia and the parties they belong to, Richmond Centre, Steveston Richmond East respectively. A. Alice Wong, Conservative, Kenny Chiu, Conservative. B. Joe Pescasolido, Liberal, Kerry Lynn Findlay, a Conservative. C. Wilson Miao, Liberal, Palm Baines, Liberal. D. Greg Halsey-Brandt, Liberal, Jeff Plant, Liberal. Question number 156. Name the members of the Legislative Assembly for Richmond, British Columbia and the parties they belong to, Richmond North Centre, Richmond South Centre, Richmond Steveston, and Richmond Queensborough respectively. A. Rob Howard, Richmond North Centre, Linda Reid, Richmond South Centre, John Cummins, Richmond Steveston, and Malcolm Brodie, Richmond Queensborough. B. Teresa Watt, Richmond North Centre, Linda Reid, Richmond South Centre, John Yap, Richmond Steveston, and Jas Johal, Richmond Queensborough. C. Olga Illich, Richmond North Centre, Rob Howard, Richmond South Centre, Jas Johal, Richmond Steveston, and John Yap, Richmond Queensborough. D. Teresa Watt, Richmond North Centre, Henry Yeo, Richmond South Centre, Kelly Green, Richmond Steveston, Aman Singh, Richmond Queensborough. Question number 157. Name three city councillors for Richmond, British Columbia. A. Malcolm Brodie, Derek Dang and Ernie Novakovsky. B. Lynn Grenell, Kiichi Kumagai and Lily Von Hendren. C. Harold Steeves, Chuck Au and Carol Day. D. Ken Johnston, Bill McNulty and Lee Bailey. Question number 158. What is the capital city of British Columbia? A. Vancouver. B. Prince George. C. Victoria. D. New Westminster. Question number 159. What is the name of the leader of the opposition in British Columbia? A. Adam Olson. B. Kevin Falcon. C. John Horgan. D. Andrew Wilkinson. Question number 160. What is the name of the Lieutenant Governor of British Columbia? A. David Lamb. B. Janet Austin. C. Adrienne Clarkson. D. Judith Guichon. Question number 161. What is the name of the Mayor of Richmond, British Columbia? D. Mayor Richard Lee. B. Mayor Bill McNulty. C. Mayor Linda McPhail. D. Mayor Malcolm Brodie. Question number 162. What is the name of the Premier of British Columbia? A. Premier Adrian Dix. B. Premier Gordon Campbell. C. Premier John Horgan. D. Premier Christy Clark. 163. Which political party is in power in British Columbia? A. New Democratic Party. B. Liberal Party. C. Social Credit Party. D. Green Party. 164. Which three natural resources are important to British Columbia's economy today? A. Forests, water and grain crops. B. Forests, fish and water. C. Fish, oil and water. D. Coal, water and shipbuilding. Question number 165. Why is British Columbia known as Canada's Pacific Gateway? A. Most new immigrants arrive at Vancouver International Airport. B. British Columbia is the closest province to the Far East. C. Billions of dollars in trade goods are handled through the Port of Vancouver. D. British Columbia borders the Pacific Ocean. Question number 166. What is the capital city of Manitoba? A. Winnipeg. B. Grand Rapids. C. Portage la Prairie. D. Brandon. Question number 167. What is the name of the leader of the opposition in Manitoba? A. Rana Bokhari. B. James Beddome. C. Wab Kinew. D. Brian Pallister. Question number 168. What is the name of the Lieutenant Governor of Manitoba? A. Honourable John Harvard. B. Honourable Peter Lieber. C. Honourable Philip Lee. D. Honourable Janice Filman. Question number 169. What is the name of the Premier of Manitoba? A. Premier Heather Stefanson. B. Premier Greg Selinger. C. Premier Brian Pallister. D. Premier Sterling Leon. Question number 170. What three industries are important to Manitoba's economy today? A. Farming, mining and fishing. B. Agriculture, mining and hydroelectric power generation. C. Fishing, tourism and mining. D. Forestry, fishing and energy. Question number 171. Which political party is in power in Manitoba? A. Manitoba Party. B. Liberals. C. Progressive Conservative. D. New Democrats. Question number 172. What is the capital city of New Brunswick? A. Victoria. B. Winnipeg. C. Fredericton. D. Montreal. Question number 173. What is the name of the leader of the opposition in New Brunswick? A. Victor Boudreau. B. Dennis Landry. C. Roger Melanson, correct answer. D. David Alward. 174. What is the name of the Lieutenant Governor of New Brunswick? A. Honourable Brenda Murphy. B. Honourable Gilbert Finn. C. Honourable Marilyn Trenholm Council. D. Honourable Graydon Nicholas. Question number 175. What is the name of the Premier of New Brunswick? A. Premier Bernard Lord. B. Premier Blaine Higgs. C. Premier David Alward. D. Premier Brian Gallant. Question number 176. What three industries are important to New Brunswick's economy today? A. Forestry, hydroelectric power generation, oil. B. Fisheries, oil, tourism. C. Atlantic trade, fishing and oil. D. Forestry, agriculture and mining. Question number 177. Which political party is in power in New Brunswick? A. Liberals. B. New Brunswick Party. C. New Democrats. D. Progressive Conservative. Question number 178. What is the capital city of Newfoundland and Labrador? A. Charlottetown. B. Chimney Tickle. C. St. John's. D. St. Pierre et Miquelon. Question number 179. What is the name of the leader of the opposition in Newfoundland and Labrador? A. David Brazil. B. Chase Crosby. C. Paul Davis. D. Dwight Ball. Question number 180. What is the name of the Lieutenant Governor of Newfoundland and Labrador? A. Honourable Frank F. Fagan. B. Honourable Edward Roberts. C. Honourable John Crosby. D. Honourable Judy May Foote. Question number 181. What is the name of the Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador? A. Premier Andrew Furey. B. Premier Dwight Ball. C. Premier Kathy Dunderdale. D. Premier Tom Marshall. Question number 182. What three industries are important to Newfoundland and Labrador's economy today? A. Fisheries, oil and gas extraction. B. Fisheries, tourism, forestry. C. Shipbuilding, fisheries and mining. D. Tourism, mining and forestry. Question number 183. Which political party is in power in Newfoundland and Labrador? A. NFL Party. B. New Democrats. C. Liberal Party. D. Progressive Conservative. Question number 184. What is the capital city of Nova Scotia? A. Shearwater. B. Halifax. C. Dartmouth. D. Devon. Question number 185. What is the name of the leader of the opposition in Nova Scotia? A. Darrell Dexter. B. John McDonnell. C. Ian Rankin. D. Jamie Bailey. Question number 186. What is the name of the Lieutenant Governor of Nova Scotia? A. Honourable John James Grant. B. Honourable Myra Freeman. C. Honourable Mayanne Francis. D. Honourable Arthur J. LeBlanc. Question number 187. What is the name of the Premier of Nova Scotia? A. Premier Darrell Dexter. B. Premier Stephen McNeil. C. Premier Tim Houston. D. Premier Rodney MacDonald. Question number 188. What three industries are important to Nova Scotia's economy today? A. Fisheries, shipbuilding and forestry. B. Forestry, mining and tourism. C. Coal mining, forestry and agriculture. D. Tourism, movies and shipbuilding. Question number 189. Which political party is in power in Nova Scotia? A. New Democrats. B. Progressive Conservative. C. Liberal. D. Nova Scotia Party. Question number 190. What is the capital city of the Northwest Territories? A. Fort Simpson. B. Hay River. C. Fort Providence. D. Yellowknife. Question number 191. What is the name of the Commissioner of the Northwest Territories? A. Honourable Margaret Tom. B. Honourable Tony Whitford. C. Honourable Daniel L. Norris. D. Honourable Glenna Hansen. Question number 192. What is the name of the leader of the opposition in the Northwest Territories? A. None. B. George Braden. C. Don Moyne. D. Nellie Kornoyer. Question number 193. What is the name of the Premier of the Northwest Territories? A. Premier Bob McLeod. B. Premier Caroline Cochrane. C. Premier Joe Handley. D. Premier Jim Antoine. Question number 194. Which political party is in power in the Northwest Territories? A. Yukon Party. B. Liberals. C. Governed by consensus. D. New Democrats. Question number 195. What is the capital city of the Nunavut? A. Sinar. B. Iqaluit. C. Nipisa. D. Mivik. Question number 196. What is the name of the Commissioner of Nunavut? A. Honourable Peter Ernick. B. Honourable Anmikit Jukhansen. C. Honourable Eva Ariak. D. Honourable Nellie thak. Question number 197. What is the name of the leader of the opposition in Nunavut? A. Don Moyne. B. Joe Handley. C. None. D. Eva Ariak. Question number 198. What is the name of the Premier of Nunavut? A. Premier Paul O'Kalik. B. Premier Floyd Rowland. C. Premier Joe Savikatak. D. Premier 𝐃𝐲𝐲. Question number 199. Which political party is in power in Nunavut? A. Progressive Conservative. B. Liberal. C. Nunavut Party. D. Governed by consensus. Question number 200. What is the capital city of Ontario? A. Kingston. B. Ottawa. C. Toronto. D. London. Question number 201. What is the name of the leader of the opposition in Ontario? A. Andrea Horwath. B. Tim Hudak. C. Patrick Brown. D. Dalton McGuinty. Question number 202. What is the name of the Lieutenant Governor of Ontario? A. James Bartleman. B. Elizabeth Dowdeswell. C. David C. Onley. D. Belinda Stráhnock. Question number 203. What is the name of the Premier of Ontario? A. Premier Doug Ford. B. Premier Jack Layton. C. Premier Kathleen Wynne. D. Premier Mike Harris. Question number 204. What three industries are important to Ontario's economy today? A. Mining, fishing, automobile manufacturing. B. Mining, tourism, automobile manufacturing. C. Farming, tourism, fishing. D. Automobile manufacturing, tourism, fishing. Question number 205. Which political party is in power in Ontario? A. Green Party. B. Liberal Party. C. Progressive Conservative Party. D. New Democratic Party. Question number 206. Which three are members of Ontario's Legislative Assembly? A. Brian Kilrea, Marlene Catterall, Tom Green. B. Howard Hampton, Maurice Richard, Daniel Polyqueen. C. Daniel Lanoy, Rosario Marchese, Diane Dufresne. D. Rod Phillips, Todd Smith, Michael Cotto. Question number 207. What is the capital city of the Prince Edward Island? A. Cornwall. B. Stratford. C. Charlottetown. D. Georgetown. Question number 208. What is the name of the leader of the opposition in Prince Edward Island? A. Olive Crane. B. Jamie Foxx. C. Stephen Mayers. D. Peter Bevan Baker. Question number 209. What is the name of the Lieutenant Governor of Prince Edward Island? A. Honourable Antoinette Perry. B. Honourable H. Frank Lewis. C. Honourable Barbara Oliver Hageman. D. Honourable Leonce Barnard. Question number 210. What is the name of the Premier of Prince Edward Island? A. Premier Wade McLauchlan. B. Premier Dennis King. C. Premier Pat Binns. D. Premier Joe Ghiz. Question number 211. Which political party is in power in Prince Edward Island? A. Progressive Conservative. B. New Democrats. C. Liberals. D. Union National. Question number 212. What is the capital city of the Quebec? A. Beauport. B. Quebec City. C. Montreal. D. Chicoutimi. Question number 213. What is the name of the leader of the opposition in Quebec? A. Dominique Anglade. B. Pierre Arcand. C. Jean-Marc Fournier. D. Philippe Couillard. Question number 214. What is the name of the Premier of Quebec? A. Premier Lucien Bouchard. B. Premier Pauline Marois. C. Premier François Legault. D. Premier Philippe Couillard. Question number 215. What three industries are important to Quebec's economy today? A. Tourism, mining and forestry. B. Pulp and paper, forestry and hydroelectric power. C. Films, fishing and mining. D. Forestry, shipping and tourism. Question number 216. Which political party is in power in Quebec? A. Coalition Avenir Québec. B. Parti Liberal. C. Parti Québécois. D. Union National. Question number 217. What is the capital city of Saskatchewan? A. Regina. B. Avonlea. C. Glenavon. D. Fort Qu'Appelle. Question number 218. What is the name of the leader of the opposition in Saskatchewan? A. Ryan Maley. B. Nicole Sarauer. C. John Nilsson. D. Cam Broten. Question number 219. What is the name of the Lieutenant Governor of Saskatchewan? A. Honourable Dr. Gordon L. Barnhart. B. Honourable Vaughan Solomon Schofield. C. Honourable Russ Morasti. D. Honourable Linda Maureen Haverstock. Question number 220. What is the name of the Premier of Saskatchewan? A. Premier Lorne Calvert. B. Premier Brad Wall. C. Premier Scott Moe. D. Premier Len Taylor. Question number 221. What three industries are important to Saskatchewan's economy today? A. Forestry, films and tourism. B. Fishing, mining and agriculture. C. Mining, oil production and forestry. D. Farming, mining and natural gas. Question number 222. Which political party is in power in Saskatchewan? A. NDP. B. Saskatchewan Party. C. Progressive Conservative. D. Social Credit. Question number 223. What is the capital city of Yukon Territory? A. Macrae. B. Crestview. C. Whitehorse. D. Riverdale. Question number 224. What is the name of the Commissioner of Yukon Territory? A. Honourable Doug Phillips. B. Honourable Angelique Bernard. C. Honourable Jack Cable. D. Honourable Douglas Bell. Question number 225. What is the name of the Leader of the Opposition in Yukon Territory? A. Trevor Harding. B. Curry Dixon. C. Stacey Hassard. D. Arthur Mitchell. Question number 226. What is the name of the Premier of Yukon Territory? A. Premier Dennis Fenty. B. Premier Bob McLeod. C. Premier Darryl Poslowski. D. Premier Sandy Silver. Question number 227. Which political party is in power in Yukon Territory? A. Progressive Conservatives. B. New Democrats. C. Liberal. D. Yukon Party.